Krishna, I'd like to ask about that silence, this silence. It always strikes me with the open-eyed meditation that we begin with that um, you are embodying that silence, um, which is particularly amazing when you begin to riff about something, um, and the thoughts and the ideas and the stringing the words together, and yet there's still silence. Um, and my specific question is if you could describe how that happened in you, that the silence, the silence of the observer, of the awareness, of the Purusha, of the soul is prominent in your being, not necessarily in mine.
Well, that's huh. So I would say that silence embodied me.
You ran into it one night in some back alley.
Well, it started off, of course, um, as a sense of being an individual who wanted something from outside, wants some um, cure, some charisma, some um, power, some healing, some transmission, some teacher, some divine being to confer, save, give, transmit, share something with me that I don't have, that I didn't have. And so it does start out with wanting to embody silence, wanting to meet silence, even if um, it's not understood to be silence, which you're after. I mean, some people might think of it in terms of peace, but like I said, transmission, all of those things from outside that are going to save me. And from that position, it is reaching out and practicing and receiving. At first, reaching out and receiving, and then what you get, or what I got, or what I received, I practiced with. So, initially there was a lot of reading books and trying to meditate or trying to embody, as you say, what is not the case, what I'd like, what I want, what I wasn't. And, there were things that would happen, like spontaneous moments of silence, meeting powerful teachers, ingesting certain substances. All of those, again, were like events that happened to me. And there was, for me, quite a lot of satisfaction in being able to access that um, through meditation, and mostly a matter of watching the mind, sitting and watching the mind. It was the main way in which I would meditate. What really, the real, you could say, embodiment, as you're saying, that happened when I was with Papaji. And with Papaji, all of this was turned inside out. All of it was turned inside out. With Papaji, the kind of pointing, the kind of speaking, the teaching, I don't know, the gestalt, is that the right way of saying it? The perspective was entirely different than any teachers that I came across, at least in person, before. You know, I had read of teachers like this, but with Papaji in person, there was the context that silence is already the case, and that effort and practice is a kind of illusion. It's a kind of virtual version of reality. That it isn't that I don't have something, that I seek for something, that I have access to something, that something is transmitted from outside to me, outside of me to me, but rather that this I and all of this seeking is always already happening in silence itself. So when I say that silence embodied me, if there was a shift, that was the shift at that point. If there was a particular shift with satsang with Papaji, with meeting Papaji, the shift was of consciousness embodying me, of silence embodying me, silence embodying me, me being found in silence. And what I mean by me is the mind, the body, the tactile or energetic or kinesthetic sensation of feeling, all of the sense fields. All of this was seen to be in silence itself, as though silence had swallowed it up. Now, even that kind of event is seen to be just something that was happening in silence that always is. So it's a mere event with a something that isn't, and then that is, with a beginning and an ending. Something that's in the past. The event is not the issue, but the insight or the recognition that silence is prior, always. and in some ways not even prior in time. It's prior in time, but that anything in time is not the point. The priorness is, it's the basis of now. It's prior in the sense of a foundation in which everything else is happening, or everything else is happening in that foundation. So it's prior in that sense. One doesn't have to go back in time in one's mind to before the Big Bang or some such thing to speak about this priorness. This priorness is outside of time. Time is in silence. Has always been in silence. Has always been in this now. So for or I should say from the ego, from the position of thinking, from the position of the perspective of the mind that appears to be in the body, there is silence that must be accessed. So for the mind, that is, or for the ego, for the sense of I, there is a kind of reactivity to the images of the mind. And that reactivity produces stress and agitation and feelings of loss and feelings of not enough and longing and all of that. And all of that creates a yearning for something that is not, that is understood to be silence, let's say, we're using that word. And so then the journey begins to find the silence again. And I have to go and sit in my meditation room, or I have to go, oh, let me close my eyes, or let me let go for a moment. Let me access the silence. And often what happens is there's accessing of the silence, and then there's recognition that finding silence, needing silence, accessing silence is all noise. Silence was always there. And the notion of trying to find it or needing to find it was agitation on the surface of the water. The water itself is deep, quiet, open, and still. But the agitation on the surface creates the illusion that somehow that deep water is agitated in some way besides the surface. Yeah. So it isn't that I'm that this mind stream is free of all desire and all grasping and all aversion, or free of reactivity to the images of the mind. All of that still happens, but there's a knowing that it's already the case that there's silence. In that moment, it might be an intellectual knowing, and then there's like, aha, oh, right, letting, and then the letting go. And then here we are. And yes, particularly since Papaji, and I don't, cannot say that I know or that I can speak, even if I knew exactly how it works. There certainly is, since being with Papaji, a way in which silence follows me, or silence has permeated me. And I can just as well say, Papaji follows me. Papaji has permeated me. But it's more like I'm in him. I live in him. In him, I move and breathe and have my being. And this is true for you as well, Lee. It isn't true that I am fundamentally silent in a way that you aren't. That's true that mind streams are unique and individual, and so certain experiences are unique to each mind stream. So, all right, there. If you track it that way, if you track it through mind or through, um, personality, then you could track differences. But fundamentally, and when I say fundamentally, I don't mean in a small way, I mean in a vast way. It's the personality and the ego and the mind fluctuation that is small, that is surface, that's ripples. Fundamentally is the large, is the massive, is the huge foundation. You are silence itself. And every technique or every glimpse or every transmission that seems to bring silence is just a removal of a veil. It's not actually giving you anything that you don't already have, that isn't already the case by nature. The drama of the mind, the drama of the ego, all of that is happening in a place that's free of drama, and that is simple rest and simple peace. Isn't it? How are you, Lee?
I'm very content. Thank you.
Very welcome.